Divine rising, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a moment. I just want to get these shared off to my pages real quick. We're going to tap in to this topic. I'm going to tap in here in just a moment. Hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. Hope it was divine for you. I have to say, I definitely enjoyed my 4th. We had an firework display right here on my street. After coming back from my daughter's house, came in, just did a thing. Pulled out my beach blanket and got in my yard and brought the music, right? But yes, and it felt so great to actually to ground and in the midst of the yard. It was great. It was great. I really enjoyed it. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. I am Shakitha with Quiet Queens Academy. I am streaming live right now to my platforms, Facebook, um, two of the Facebook platforms, and also I am streaming live on YouTube. And yeah, there it is. It's coming. It's just a little slow. All right. Yeah, so I'm streaming live on YouTube as well. So if you are tuning in with me right now, let me know where you are tuned in from. Okay, yes, I can hear me. Where we're tuning in from, and so we can get into this conversation. And if anyone who would love to tap in with me on this conversation this morning, go ahead and click the link in the comments. I can't remember if I put it over here on this other one, but it's on my one channel. If you want to join me live, you can do so. So, and if you have been joining me or, silently joining me, I appreciate that and thank you so much for tuning in with me. And if you find anything that is of value, do share this out. Share this live out. Share this live out to our introvert women, those who are introverts. It doesn't necessarily have to be just women, but I mean, as we say, divine rising to our queens and our kings. All right, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. And our topic on this morning is your perspective shapes your reality. Why two people can experience the same situation and leave with completely different outcomes. And so we don't see the world exactly as it is. We see it through our experiences, beliefs, expectations, and perspectives. And this morning, we're experiencing how changing your perspective can completely change your decision, your relationships, and your results. All right. So, again, divine rising to you, quiet queens. However, every however, have you ever hear me have you ever had a conversation with someone and walked away wondering if the two of you experienced the same moment? Have you ever experienced that? What's interesting is that neither person is necessarily wrong. They're simply viewing it through different perspectives, right? And one of the greatest lessons I've learned is that changing your perspective often changes your possibilities. And so today, I want to talk about why perspectives matter so much. Why do they matter so much? And we're going to get into that right now. So if you are tuning in with me right now, let me know that you're tuning in. If you are going to be watching this on the replay, do let me know what your perspective is on this particular topic. So we can pretty much just let's get into it, right? Let's get into it and let's talk about it. um, uh-oh. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's get into this first point, right? We don't see life as it is. We see life as we are. Let me say that again. We don't see life as it is. We see life as we are. And so there was a time when I believe every obstacle was simply something standing in my way. And as I've continued to as I continued growing, I realized many of those obstacles weren't changing. I was, right? They weren't changing. I was changing. And the more I developed personally, the more differently I interpreted situations that once frustrated me. And the situations hadn't changed. My perspective had. And it's great that we have different perspectives, right? So that shift helped me respond with more intention instead of a reaction. And so let me ask you, can you think of something that once frustrated you, but now teaches you something because you've grown? And that's the whole thing about, growth. I mean, we go through the same situation at different times and we react differently because our perspective have changed and we have actually grown and we can move forward without reacting like we used to. I mean, and that's what you call growth. All right. And that is definitely what you call growth. So let's go ahead and get into the next point here. Um, Different perspectives don't have to create division. Hear me. And this is a big one. People seem to debate, argue because we have different perspectives, and it's okay. But different perspectives don't have to create a division. And it's interesting that me and my cousin was talking about this on yesterday, about different perspectives. I mean, you think about it, and I'm not trying to go here, but you know, in situations when it comes to biblical principles and biblical writings and things like that. That is a perspective. That is someone's perspective, right? And sometimes, we can all read a passage and we get something different from it, but then sometimes, it'll create a division because what happens is that some use myself, okay, I'm trying to force my perspective on someone who sees it differently than I do, which at the end of the day, I mean, your perspective is yours and mine is mine. Okay. And I like to say, what's right for me is right for me, and what's right for you is right for you. And neither party is wrong. Now, however, whatever your right is may not be right for me. And so I wouldn't do it or live that way or whatever the case may be. Because we got to get understand and know that different perspectives don't have to create division. We don't have to be debatable. I've learned to accept. I don't argue about another person's perspective. And I'm not going to debate mine. I'm not going to debate yours. But we can definitely have a conversation about it and listen, because sometimes we can learn. But we're going to get into that. So I said all that said, building Quiet Queens Academy has reminded me that not everyone will think like I do. And that's actually a strength. And if everyone approaches every challenge the same way, we only see one solution. And that gets back to what I was saying a little earlier. Okay. I'm not going to force my perspective on you because, again, as I just said, if everyone approaches every challenge the same way, we only see one solution. Some of the best ideas come from people who see something I completely miss. And so instead of trying to convince everyone to think like me, I've learned to become curious about why they think differently. And I'm that person. I'm going to ask that question. I'm just curious. Can I ask you? And so curiosity creates understanding. So what that allows me, because I have come to the point to understand, and understanding creates stronger relationships, right? So let me ask you, when someone sees something differently than you, do you become defensive? Hmm. That's one to really, really, really think about and go in within yourself and answer that question honestly, right? Because I can say and honestly say, like, years ago, I used to get defensive when someone didn't see it as I saw it. I mean, being in a space, in a in a space where, like I said, where I went to church, and let's say that I went to the building, and I used to say things to my son, and he would see it differently, and I would respond defensively, right? I respond defensively, but then when I woke up to my own BS, all right, when I woke up to my own BS, and some of y'all might know it as the other one, the bull, but I'm talking about belief systems as well. So some see it as belief systems. But when I woke up to my own belief system and realized that, everybody has their own perspective that they see it as they see it, and that's fine. And I learned to accept and not have expectations on people when I expected him to see it as I see it and end up being defensively upset. And when in actuality, the person I should have been upset with was myself, because the thing is, I tried to force my perspective on him in not realizing it, even understanding or understanding that he has his own perspective, and that whatever his perspective was is correct. So, I ask yourself that question honestly. When someone sees something differently than you, do you become defensive or curious? I've got to add that part on it, right? And so now I can transparently say I become curious, because the thing is, I don't know what I don't know, right? And the only way for me to find out is that I ask. I get a little curious. I ask the question. And in that, if someone doesn't even want to respond and say, I don't want to respond to that, that's okay. I mean, because again, it's their perspective. They don't have to answer it. So let's get into this next point. Um, Growth begins when we value different perspectives. I mean, how many of y'all believe that growth begins when we value different perspectives? And some of the greatest growth I've experienced came from conversations that challenged my thinking. And the thing is, I I really enjoy great conversations. I love to be enlightened. I mean, because the thing is, like I said, I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything. And so I like to have really great conversations, to where I can experience a level of growth, to be enlightened, to learn, to even go down a rabbit hole if on something that I didn't know. So I love, love, love to be enlightened, because again, I don't know everything, but I know some things. I know quite a few things. So, and the thing is, so like I said, some of the greatest conversations I experienced came from conversations that challenged my thinking, not because someone proved me wrong, but because they helped me see something I couldn't see on my own. And growth requires humility. Sometimes we got to get humble. Sometimes we got to humble ourselves. I mean, and the thing is not that people humble us, is that sometimes the things that are being said and how we receive them humbles us, right? So it requires recognizing that none of us can see the complete picture alone. Now we see our own picture, But when we're having a conversation, the thing is, as they say that saying, we can agree to disagree, but the thing is, it's not really in my perspective, it's not really disagreeing. It's basically, for me, is accepting. I accept your perspective as being yours and mine's being mine. So I feel like that, that will complete the picture for me. That's one reason I value environments where people feel safe sharing different viewpoints. I love, 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 love that. So let me ask you, who has challenged your thinking in a way that ultimately helped you grow? I'm telling you, ask questions, don't make assumptions. If it's something that you want to know, get curious. Get curious about it. So again, who has challenged your thinking in a way that ultimately helped you grow? Let us know, or just sit with yourself and think about that. And ask yourself that question. Just ask yourself the question, right? Um, so let's tap into the next point here. Leadership is creating space for different voices. And so as I've continued building Quiet Queens Academy, I realized leadership isn't about always having the answers, because I don't. I don't have all the answers. And it's about creating an environment where people feel safe enough to contribute theirs. I mean, and and I would say, if anyone who is watching this that is part of our team, I mean, I encourage you. We have a open session Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I mean, and we should just come together, because again, we want to have that environment where you feel safe enough to contribute your perspective, right? Like I said, it's about creating environments where people feel safe enough to contribute theirs, and everyone's perspective is valid. Is valid. It's completely valid. And so again, that's one of the reasons why I created Quiet Queens Academy. So when people know, they'll be heard instead of judged. So that's what I'm saying. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe enough to contribute theirs. When people know, they'll be heard instead of judged, and they begin bringing their best ideas. That's how strong communities are built. So don't, let's say, despise, small environments. And if you don't have that environment, create that environment, right? So let me ask you, do the people around you feel safe enough to share perspectives that are different from yours? And that's a big one. So be honest with yourself. It's not being honest with the next person, but be honest with yourself, because when you're honest with yourself, guess what? You're going to automatically be honest with everybody else, right? Um, and at this moment, you matter. Your perspective matters, right? So do you feel do the people around you feel safe enough to share perspectives that are different from yours? And being transparent here, sometimes even in our open session that we have, sometimes I don't feel safe enough, to share my perspective. And and the thing is, because and if I have to just be complete, like I'm saying, being completely transparent is basically because of judgment. I mean, because the thing is, when you feel like that you're in an environment that you may feel like that you're being judged on your perspective, and a lot of times it's like, okay, are you really listening? Are you truthfully listening to what I'm saying? Or are you just blowing off what I said? Because sometimes you get in these environments where, you feel like, when you bring something and a person just blows your idea off like, you didn't say it. So sometimes, even in my environment that I go into, sometimes I don't feel safe enough to share my perspective. Is because, I guess because in times, I shared something and it got blown off. And so sometimes I sit back and I listen to everybody else's perspective. And then what I do is I have a self-talk with myself about it. Or, I may have a conversation with someone else about, that the subject or whatever, the topic. I mean, because again, sometimes, you want to hear a different perspective. And I like to say this, I don't have conversations with other people to validate, what I'm feeling, my emotions, or anything like that, because I can do that on my own. And I feel like that, anything that I'm saying is I validated myself. So I don't look for validation, external validation. It's just me sharing to hear another perspective, right? And maybe to help me see something clearer, maybe that I didn't see, but not to be validated or invalidated, right? So let me talk to you a little bit about the Quiet Queens Academy connection. Okay, so one of the reasons Quiet Queens Academy exists is because many introverted women, have spent years believing their quieter perspectives didn't matter. And I felt that. I felt that, and I feel that sometimes. And I don't believe leadership belongs to the louder voice. But yet, what we do, we hear the loudest voice in the room. And most people do. And I believe leadership belongs to the person who creates clarity, listens deeply, and help others discover their own voice. Because here's the deal. We all have a voice, and our voice matters. Every person voice matters. And so different perspectives don't weaken a community, they strengthen it. So if you are, excuse me, if you have not got into the Quiet Queens Academy, and you would like to, come into the community, get a feel of the space, the environment, you can do so at quietqueensacademy.com/community. Again, come in, go at your own pace. There's courses in there such as stop chasing imposter shift, um, calm, calm conversations that convert, and the building model explained. So come in, experience it, and come be a part of the environment. Again, that's at quietqueensacademy.com/community. And so, if there's one thing I hope you take away today, is this: your perspective influences every decision you make. And sometimes the breakthrough you're looking for doesn't require a new opportunity. It requires a new way of seeing the opportunity you already have. So stay open, stay curious, continue growing, because the moment your perspective expands, your possibility expands with it. So thank you for spending your time with me this morning, and have a beautiful day, Quiet Queens. I will see you on tomorrow.